Hey everyone, this is Q Storm, and I'm here reviewing The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies, which opened this past Wednesday. It's the final film in a trilogy which actually should have been at most 2 films. Could have been 1 film with some judicious editing.
Thorin, you gave a promise.
Now, for those of you who, like me, in terms of sentiment and age, thought that the first 15 minutes of Return of the Jedi wrapped up the Han Solo cliffhanger a little too neatly and quickly, prepare for deja vu. The first 15 minutes of this film neatly wraps up the Smaug cliffhanger, but I think it's actually done better here than in Return of the Jedi, as the aftermath of Smaug's decimation of Lakeville actually leads into the setup for the humans' involvement in the upcoming battle. This movie is all about battle. It's in the title. So the 5 armies are made up of elves, dwarves, orcs, and men. And I can't remember the 5th one, but I don't think it really matters. Now here's the biggest problem I have with the movie. 2/3 of the film is made up of battles, and the battles here don't measure up to the battles we saw in the 2 Towers, the fight for Helm's Deep, and the Battle of Gondor in Return of the King. The threat of Sauron in those previous films made the stakes much higher, what with the goal being dominion over all of Middle-earth. And the battles were of a grander scale. Here, we see characters that a lot of time was spent building them up over the last 2 movies, yet here they're participating in a battle over nothing more than a big pile of gold. And it got a little ridiculous for me because it seemed like the news spread fast across Middle-earth that Smaug's treasure is up for grabs, because it seemed like every other 5 minutes a new army was arriving on the horizon. You'd think Middle-earth had a speed rail to get to Erebor for everyone to join into the fighting. And unlike the previous trilogy, a lot of the fight scenes here centered less on the armies and more on specific characters, making the scope much smaller. And those fight scenes went on, I think, a little too long. There's nothing as awesome here as the giant elephants in Return of the King. They're replaced by nondescript trolls, goblins, and giants. The fighting is not as convincing either. All the orcs are clad in bulky-looking armor, and they're huge, but they get hit once and they all seem to fall down very easily. There are also a lot of implausible acrobatics that pulled me out of the movie more than once. Shout out to Legolas. There's a scene where we're supposed to believe that Thorin, the dwarf leader, and his 12 companions are a serious threat to the orc army, and it's almost a little laughable. There's even a scene that contains the old-fashioned horror movie cliche where the villain should be dead, but he plays possum, waits for the hero to get close to him, then he suddenly wakes up and ambushes the hero. Really? There's also one other element. I never would have thought that the residents of Middle-earth spoke in 21st century colloquialisms such as, "I got this," right before they get into a fight. Okay, enough about the fighting. Let's talk about how bad some of the CGI is. It's embarrassingly bad. But even worse is the completely unnecessary presence of Tauriel, who's not even in the original Hobbit novel by J.R.R. Tolkien. Her love for the dwarf Keeley serves absolutely no purpose, and the fact that it was built up over the previous films is ultimately a waste because there's very little payoff. So I would give this movie only 2 stars, but what bumps it up to 3 is Martin Freeman. He plays the brave and befuddled Bilbo so well. Every tick and grin in his expression exudes a warmth, a charm, and dare I say it, a sweetness. So much so that when he breaks down and cries, well, it made me well up just a little. So there's that, and maybe there are a few fight scenes that got my blood pumping. So even though I'm giving it 3 stars mainly for Freeman, I can't say that I would watch this again. Rather, it made me want to rewatch the superior Lord of the Rings trilogy once again, as well as it made me check out Martin Freeman on the BBC's Sherlock, which is an excellent show. So ultimately, I'm giving this 3 reels mainly because of Martin Freeman. So I guess this is goodbye. What the So I guess this is goodbye to all the people of Middle-earth until they decide to do the Silmarillion. And that's the martini.